everyone. So the news for the new civilization we're gonna get in AOE4 just dropped. It's Byzantium, and we just got this little sneak peek that was dropped on the forums. So we're gonna take a look. We have this lovely overlay, user by the name Coodle L5 made, or Coodle 5, I think it's called. And as you can see, he marked everything there's to see: town center, villager. We've got these unique farms. What I think is probably a unique mill, cistern. What a lot of people at first thought are walls, but these are definitely going to be aqueducts, not walls, which are used to transport water around, probably to these cisterns here. Um, and these are the actual walls over here. And he marks some great things out. So, for instance, these things are cisterns, so they have water in them, as you can see, and they're most likely an influence bonus. These are the knight equivalents. These are either the knights or the knight equivalents. They're probably going to be named cataphracts, but I'm not sure if they're a unique unit. Uh, they are carrying swords, but knights have two armaments. They have a lance and a sword, so them carrying a sword doesn't really mean anything. We have what he marked as man-at-arms, but I'm going to say these are probably Vargarians. Now, I have two reasons for this. First of all, the Vargarians were very iconic, and so I doubt that they would have skipped them. They're about as iconic as the cataphracts, but also these look a lot different than normal man-at-arms. First of all, they have capes, which no other man-at-arm has, and these capes look very, you know, not un-Roman. These to me they kind of look like bear skin or something, some sort of leather. And then they also have wooden shields. Now you might not think this is a big deal, but every other man-at-arm unit has metal shields in Imperial, and you can tell they're in Imperial Age because they have the little gold hats on them. So I definitely think these are Vargarians. These are the Vargarian Guard. These crossbows, they look pretty much like every other crossbow. They don't seem that unique. But we also see Keshets and Abbasid Ghulams. This kind of hints that the Byzantines might be able to recruit the unique units of some other civs, which would kind of lead to a mercenary aspect, which the Byzantiums definitely had. They recruited pretty much anyone they could find. And then we also see these horsemen, which actually have little shields on them. These shields are actually bucklers, making me think that their horsemen probably have extra melee defense, because bucklers aren't really used to block arrows. They're actually kind of used to block melee hits. And then we have this really blurry image of units that don't look like any of the other units, but you can't really make out their weapons, so you don't know really what they are. Now this user thinks that they're flamethrowers, possibly, I'm not sure, but that would be very dope if it's true. Now we have a little look at a Vargarian. We can see the brown cloak. The Vargarians were mainly used axes, which kind of invalidates my theory, but they also use some swords. So as we can see, this is probably a Vargarian unit. I'm assuming it's gonna have more damage or health, but with higher cost. Maybe like it costs 40 gold instead of 20, with higher stats. These spearmen do look very unique, and I'm guessing that they're gonna be called legionaries. Just because you can't have a Roman civ and not call them legionaries, unless you're the HRE, of course. So I'm guessing they're kind of gonna be like Donzos, where they have more armor, but they have less attack speed, and they're more expensive. And then, like the Donzo, they might have a unique ability. I don't think it's gonna be like a javelin throw, even though that would make sense, iconic, thematically, like a legionary being able to throw a javelin thrower, just because that would make them too much like a Donzo. And the AOE4 is very much about the uniqueness of units. We can see the Mongol Keshet and Gulams. So as I was saying, that's possibly the mercenary aspect. We already have a civ that can kind of do this, like the Mongols, but it's kind of more of a gimmicky thing with their age 4 landmark. So these unite knights don't really look unique enough to me to be a unique unit. However, I don't think that they're going to completely ignore the cataphract aspects of the Byzantium just because of how, iconic that is to the Byzantium. And then we have these possible fire units, but it's really too blurry to make out. Now, I'm going to be talking about some of the buildings we have access to and not just the units. So, buildings and the influence. So we have the farms of the Byzantium. They're obviously not growing wheat, and they're not growing like every other civ except for China and the Mongols who just don't farm. And they're not rice like China. These are look kind of like fruit trees to me, so I'm guessing they're orchids. So and I'm guessing that kind of like how the rice replenishes faster than farms. These would replenish slower, and maybe the cisterns help out with that. Maybe they replenish slower, but they like give a bunch more food on drop off. The aqueducts, their only purpose to me seems to be link up these cisterns, and I'm guessing that's how you propagate the influence, like how you can do it with most buildings with like HRE or Abbasid or tech buildings with the Delhi, or how the HRETCs give a really wide bonus. I'm guessing this is kind of like the HRETCs. The mills in particular, they look very unique. They look a lot different from these lumber camps look like the lumber camps of every other civ, but these mills, they do not look like the mills. Like the average mill is kind of just like a little wooden base and then a windmill going on top. These look like they're more expensive. I'm guessing these are 100 resource. They might also be stone, and that has other consequences if that's true, but I'm guessing they also give some sort of economy buff. And like all of these together, all their unique buildings, except for the landmarks, seem to be related to farming, which means this might be another farming civ, like English, where their farms just are just kind of the basis of their whole civ, and you will start farming as soon as possible. And I'm So let's go on to the landmarks now. So we see the first landmark here. This kind of looks like a forge. So it might have text like a blacksmith, but we also see units leaving it. So it might kind of be um, like the barracks landmark that we had that we're missing because we have in feudal we have the stable landmark with the French, and we have the archery range landmark for the English, but we don't have a barracks landmark. So this might be it. So most likely would act similar to Council Hall or Royal Stable, but for infantry, or a bit like the minework. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be the castle landmark, just because of how fancy it looks. Um, as we can see, there's also these little guys guarding it, which, if there's Vargarians guarding it, maybe it means the Emperor is inside. Now, I don't know how that would actually work. Perhaps he's getting, you can research, um, you can research texts for villagers, like in the House of Wisdom. Maybe it generates resources, like the Guild Hall for the French. Perhaps it also just gives, like, a big boost to all your farmers or something, or just a big eco buff in general. I'm not really sure what this thing's going to do, but I do think it's probably going to be pretty powerful. And then we have, this is the aqueduct in front, and then we've got the stone walls on the side, and it looks like this landmark is attached. So this is probably going to act kind of like the Great Wall Gatehouse. Probably just a defensive landmark you put on a wall, and it probably just denies a whole area, and you can't go in. Um, So this also it really links back to the idea that the Constantinople had some of the strongest walls in the world, except for China, I guess. And it's actually, if you play Age of Empires, you probably know about the Great Bombard, which are just these massive cannons that shoot like 500-pound balls. And they were actually used because Constantinople had such strong walls. They needed a big ass fucking cannon to burn them down. So, the Civ overview. So, this Civ seems to be focused on farming and infantry, maybe a bit of cavalry. The aqueducts are most likely needed to expand the cistern influence, and which is definitely tied to farming slash economy. Orchards and unique mill into a different farming style, and it might give wood or gold as well as food, like the China, Rus, and English. Lots of buildings seem to be made of stone, as I was saying. The aqueducts are definitely made of stone. The cisterns look to be made of stone. The mills look to also be made of stone. And so they might have a way of getting infinite stone, like the French and the Mali. Like how the Mali needs a bunch of gold for different things, like their cows and their units all take a bunch of gold. They get, and their Lamarck, which uses pure gold, they get a bunch of gold bonuses. So this they might have a way of getting infinite stone somehow. It might have a mercenary system and is able to recruit unique units of the civs around them. So Byzantium is pretty close to the Ottoman Empire, the Abbasids, and the Mongols. So I'm guessing they would be able to recruit some of those civs. And it ties back to the mercenary aspect because as the Byzantium got smaller and smaller and got closer to collapse, they relied heavily on mercenaries as they didn't have enough army to really keep themselves afloat. So the unique infantry looks like a spearman equivalent, which I'm going to say is the legionary, man at arm equivalent, Vargarians. We also have a horseman that might have a unique upgrade, which gives them a shield, or it might be another unique horseman. Um, and the cataphracts, which I can't imagine they wouldn't have the cataphract in the game. They wouldn't give Byzantium a cataphract unit, but it also just doesn't look unique enough to me. It kind of just looks like a standard knight. Well, thank you for listening. If you guys have any ideas for what you might think of this Civ, be sure to add them. As soon as the Civ gets dropped, I'm gonna do a full analysis along with Japan and any other Civs that get dropped. So be on the lookout for that. And thanks for watching.